Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark from the United States.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Mark from the States. How are we doing today? I am fantastic. I hope you are as well. Thank you to all of you who have reached out. The fires are still going nuts down in LA. We are safe. We really haven't been in danger of anything. We're still a good 25 to 30 minutes by car north of where these fires are. So our biggest concern is not the current fires, but new fires, because they can just pop up at any point. There's a lot of reasons for this is, of course, as we have these fires every single year, we have had record rainfall the last couple of years, which then encourages a lot of new growth. And now this past year, in 24, we didn't have much rainfall at all, so they all died. The new growth has now died, and it's now perfect fire starting and burning material. So there you have it. Is that climate change? I'm sure it has something to do with it. The Santa Ana winds isn't so much climate change. That's been a naturally occurring thing forever. But combine that with the perfect conditions. And, I mean, these winds were just insane. And so that's our biggest concern when the Santa Anas blow in off of the desert. You just got to be, wary of a fire can just pop up at any point. We can get, there's also mismanage of the state, people who are in charge. Yeah, those are all questions that can be had. But thank you. It is so greatly appreciated, and appreciate everybody checking on me. Today's video, Tom the taxi driver has been, I wouldn't say heavily requested, but this video is being requested by a few people. It's always awesome that it's a channel that has given us permission, so thank you. He's talking about should Oxford Street be closed to pedestrians? Here in Ventura, we've had this happen. Our main street, which had all the restaurants and bars and retail and shops, and stuff like that, used to be a main thoroughfare to drive, but then they, during COVID, closed it down to allow these restaurants to expand out into the street with outdoor dining, which was the only way you can enjoy these places. And that has become now a permanent thing. And I think it started off really, really well. A lot of people enjoyed it, brought a lot of people down there. Now, of course, things have died down. It's not the new and shiny thing as it was. And so there's some grumblings that they should reopen it. I'm not quite sure where I stand on it yet. It does affect everybody around it, I imagine, in maybe a positive or a negative way. I'm not sure. But so this will be interesting. Of course, Ventura is in no way comparable to what London has to deal with. And so I'm not saying it's the same thing. But I just that's my point of reference, is what's happened in my own city. So I encourage you to come sit on this big fake couch. If you have one like, one subscription, go give it to Tom the taxi driver on his channel. Links below will take you there to the channel and to this video. If you don't want to hear me talk, that's fine. You can fast forward. I'll put the timestamp there. So hopefully you saw that, and you can just slide the slider forward. You can avoid all of this. Or you just want to watch the video without any sort of pausing and all that stuff. Yeah, go to his channel, watch it. In fact, I encourage you to go do that anyway. Give him the stuff that helps his channel out. We're just here to learn. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for coming, and let's get into today's video. Here we go.
There's a big problem coming to London. Yeah. Oxford Street is going to be pedestrianised. But what does this actually mean?
So it hasn't started.
Good news, bad news, and what are my predictions for the fact that Oxford Street is going to be pedestrianised? A little bit of history. The whole idea of Oxford Street being pedestrianised is not new. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has been pushing for this for many, many years. And for whatever reason, whether that's local opposition, whether that's political opposition in the Conservative government, and of course he is a Labour Mayor of London, this time round, all the stars seem to be aligning, i.e. you've got Labour government, you've got Labour Westminster Council, and you've got a Labour Mayor. So it seems like this is all going to go through. Now, we're yet to see what the actual full plan is of this pedestrianisation, because lots of different ideas have been floated over the years. Some of the consultations I saw with like previous iterations of this didn't look too bad, because the thing is, if they pedestrianise a lot of Oxford Street, you have to make the north and south routes a little bit more accessible. So we actually got some better options when it came out of some of those little streets that are near the Selfridges kind of Mayfair area. Why do we need to pedestrianise Oxford Street? Well, I'll take a little excerpt from Sadiq Khan. Khan said urgent action was needed so that the mile-long street could, quote, once again become the leading retail destination in the world, end quote. Probably didn't say it like that. I get that, you know, pedestrianising quite busy shopping areas, because fundamentally it's nice. Like, look at Europe. I've got some examples here. You've got the Kantnerstrasse in Vienna. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. St. Catherine in Bordeaux. And, I mean, there's one in Copenhagen. Like, many European countries have really nice pedestrianised shopping districts. But they're kind of more smaller districts. We've kind of already seen this with Covent Garden, right? The whole piazza is pretty much pedestrianised now. You can no longer do that. So that's pretty much all pedestrianised now. And as is Seven Dials. You can't cut through it. There's no point of driving into Seven Dials. So for all intents and purposes, that might as well be pedestrianised. But I kind of get those because they're like a small clustered area anyway. Like, all the shops are in close proximity to one another. Where I think Oxford Street will fall down is the clue in the article. It's a mile-long shopping street. Who really walks from one end of Oxford Street all the way to the other, especially on a busy Saturday afternoon when you have crowds of people everywhere? It's hardly the most enjoyable thing it is. So I'm not too sure what pedestrianisation is really going to create here. I mean, the big picture, I mean, this is quite a crude mock-up here, but it's always been centred around the piazza, right? So the Oxford Circus, as it will, where Regent Street intersects with Oxford Street. But that will cause a lot of problems. Regent Street is already awful following the pandemic because we went from 2 lanes of traffic, both north and south, down to 1 lane, and no segregated bus stops. So when a bus pulls over to let people on, everyone gets stuck behind the bus.
Pardon the heater. Yeah, that would be, that's awful. Now, what he just said there about Regent Street. The money is in the pedestrians, right? So you want to give them more access to allow more people to come down into these shopping districts. I believe that's the idea they had. But I can see why they want to do that, because it's being the draw for tourists that it is, right? You would think they want more is better.
I know, it's great progress, this. You might be thinking, Tom, like, surely, like, Oxford Street or Regent Street is just full of traffic anyway. Like, why would you want to drive there? The issue is, these are really important thoroughfares, but it connects the City of London all the way over to Bayswater. You can look it on a map. It's a really long, straight road. It has its origins as a Roman road connecting Essex to Hampshire. And it was only in, the 19th century, the early 19th century, when we had the construction of the New Road, which is the Euston Road and the Marylebone Road, specifically to ease congestion on Oxford Street. Right, so let's go look at some of these problems. Obviously, I've got a very big hammer that has the words taxi driver written on it. So I'm going to try my best to strip away from my bias as a cabbie and really look at what this could actually mean. So, first off, let's go
You
into
got the
north-south
experience.
argument. I want to get a map up here. So if they pedestrianise, let's just talk about that middle piazza, right? Even just doing that will have serious ramifications. Regent Street is awful anyway, but sometimes you need to use it. You only really have two other options of getting north, maybe three if you count Poland Street. So the first is Wardour Street. I use Wardour Street quite a lot because there's no traffic lights along it. There's not really any reason to get stuck behind anything unless it's maybe a bin lorry or something like that. And even if I'm on the line of Regent Street, so even if I want to go up into like Regent's Park, it's sometimes in the day best to cut into Wardour Street and then cut back out onto Portland Place at some point, or Great Portland Street. The other option is Poland Street, so you can do a bit of a wiggle through that bit of Soho. That works. And then beyond that, if you go a bit west, you've got Hanover Square, Hollis Street, but then you have to do this sort of weird shimmy and wiggle around Cavendish Square. But I can't imagine just the sheer chaos it's going to bring with all the buses being diverted for all of that. I mean, the buses certainly are not going to be squeezing through Soho, so that option's off the table. The only thing they've really got is Hanover Square. So instantly, the Hanover Square option's off the table, and then everyone else is going to go through Soho. So, going to be a nightmare. The other thing people don't realise is that Oxford Street is already restricted quite heavily to traffic anyway. Technically, from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m, Monday to Saturday, it's buses, taxis, cycles only. You can't go over the Oxford Street, Piazza, Centre bit, Circus, whatever, unless you own one of those free modes of transport. I mean, I'm not entirely objected to, like, partial pedestrianisation. I think that will work if they work out the use cases of how people use Oxford Street, because I need to use bits of it, right? It's very rarely that I go from the whole east to west or from west to east. I'll only do that late at night, early in the morning when I know there's not much traffic about, because often, depending on where I'm going, of course, it's better if I cut up or cut down. So I'll just be on it for a short sliver before I escape elsewhere. So you need these little kind of little access points, if you will. Let's just say I get hailed down like Shaftesbury Avenue, right? And I need to get to Marylebone Station. Well, I'm going to cut through a bit of Soho. I'm going to go over bits of Oxford Street, either straight up Wardour Street and into Berners Street, or I'll come out the forced left turn out of Poland Street and along a bit of Oxford Street before I dive up into Great Portland Street. You just need those little slim access points. But the whole pedestrianisation, I think, will be just brutally bad. Let's look at this from the main aims and agenda of the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, which is he wants to make it a thriving retail destination. Well, I think the biggest problem is that the street is a mile long. When I'm on Oxford Street, the most common journeys I get is, say, if I'm down the western end, like by Selfridges, and someone says, oh, can we go to this shop down the eastern end? Or they'll want Covent Garden, or they want Harrods. So it's pretty much saying that people who are in the area shopping, when they get in a taxi, they want to go to another shopping area. So if you pedestrianise it, and I can't drive along those streets, I can't get people to other shopping destinations. You are then inhibiting their ability to go shopping and retail. The primary objective of pedestrianising Oxford Street. Yes, it will be a nice, enjoyable space, but if you've come to town, let's say you've taken a train up because you live in an outer suburb or you live in a neighbouring county to London, you've already put in a lot of steps and mileage to get to the train station, come in at Liverpool Street, maybe get a taxi over to the West End. But there's going to become a point in the day where you're like, I'm really quite tired now. I would like to go to more shops, but I can't really get about. And you're then stuck on Oxford Street. You can't hail down a taxi because all the street has been pedestrianised.
Right.
How are you going to get around? It's quite easy to look at like an age demographic of, say, someone in their 30s, 40s. But when you're getting into like 50s, 60s, 70s, and you've got mobility impairments, are you really going to walk the whole length of Oxford Street? No. So it severely caps and limits where people can go shopping. It's why shopping centres and shopping malls generally thrive. If they've got like a free parking, then people will go to those because they've got a lot of shops in a hyper-concentrated area rather than trying to get into a small town, navigate parking and logistical issues like that. Pedestrianisation is going to create more friction. People aren't going to be able to move around as easily. So that's retail that's going to be affected by this. The other one is emergency vehicles and related to crime. One of the biggest problems London has right now is the growing levels of, like, quote, petty crime.
Before he continues on this, I kind of want to go back to retail and other shops and him saying moving people to other shopping destinations. You've always told me when I first mentioned that I wanted to come visit, bring comfortable shoes, right? So he makes the point of, it's such a large area, if a lot of walking, you know, and if the option is to go see Covent Gardens, you have to walk there or walk to a further place to get a cab. It would be more difficult, and I can see that. I mean, you spend all day walking through these shops, you're tired, and the thought of having to walk to another place just so you can walk some more, I could imagine would turn a lot of people off. And then I don't mean to keep referencing my own city, but this is just the experience I have, and of course, obviously, is nothing like London. And what we do here in my small town city of Ventura is not going to be comparable to what London deals with, obviously. But I never really even put a lot of thought into the shops that are outside of Main Street and how, if it's affected them positively or negatively if you're not on the main drag. Because the parking that is now used to go to these shops that are off Main Street that has been closed to cars now fills up with people who are going to Main Street. And those shops that are off Main Street, whose parking was generally used for them, has now been taken up. So yeah, it's a delicate balance. I can imagine the immense pressure the powers of that be, whether it's the mayor or city council or whoever's in charge of it, have to weigh to try to make most people happy, I guess. And now we're going to get into crime, okay?
Like phone snatchings and things like that. They already do this quite brazenly in any areas of London. And the only way that the police can usually tackle this is they usually come speeding along in a car. Because the phone snatchers, watch grabbers, whatever, they're on hyper-powered electric bikes. Well, if you pedestrianise Oxford Street, you're just going to create the most perfect haven for phone snatching to occur.
Sure.
And that's a far bigger problem than the retail issue. If retail was really the biggest issue, then you would clear out all of the American sweet shops that litter Oxford Street. Because depending on how much of it's pedestrianised, how are the police ever going to get round to the individual shops? Like, shoplifting is probably going to go up, in which case it's going to make it less of an attractive shopping street, because people are going to be fearing of, do I really want to go out shopping and wonder if I'm going to get my watch stolen, my phone stolen, or, just be a part of just general misdemeanors on that street, when you could just go to somewhere like Westfield and they're going to have enclosed security where there is people walking around on foot to stop such criminals. And it just comes back to this deluded idea. It's a mile-long shopping street. Carnaby Street, pedestrianised, short shopping street. There's no reason for cars to drive up and down there. Got it. Covent Garden, don't quite agree with it. It was a useful cut-through, but it must be much nicer to be able to walk around on like Southampton Street, Henrietta Street, and all things like that.
Especially during the holidays.
Steve McNamara of the Licensed Taxi Driver Association, the LTTA, he said that the ranks outside John Lewis and Selfridges were two of the busiest in London. And I agree, you've only got to look at how oversubscribed that rank is outside Selfridges, how many times I go there in my videos, because it's like guaranteed work. There's so many people coming out of there. But where are they generally wanting to go? Covent Garden, maybe a hotel in Mayfair or something, maybe Harrods. More shopping and activity. The analogy I want to draw upon is that anything in life where there's a level of friction, people will just opt out. It's why my mantra is like less faff. I hate faff in life. If there's any level of faff, I won't do it. Some of the best retailers in the world know this. It's like Amazon, one-click ordering. They've got your credit card details, you put it in the basket, bang, ordered, done, it's coming. Money loves speed and it hates friction. But this is going to create a friction point for many people going shopping. I'm not saying that everyone jumps in a taxi, but having a taxi or a bus just gives you more availability and opportunity to get around. Pedestrianising it, yeah, it'll be nice in little areas, but you're not going to explore the whole length of Oxford Street. And that's the issue here. And on top of all the friction that there is with coming to London anyway, it's expensive to get in. You can't drive in because of ULEZ and congestion charge. And now you're going to have to walk around. There's no other option to get around Oxford Street. Obviously, I think it's a pretty bad idea. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I think whenever things like this come along, it disrupts us a little bit, but fundamentally, we'll always be in a job. Check out this video over here about the Elizabeth line and how the predictions of how that could end taxi driving didn't go down too well.
Thank you, Tom. Please go and support him. This was interesting because on a very small, minute scale, we are currently in the midst of the same thing here locally. Again, nothing like London. London's going to have way more issues because of taxis and buses. Here in my town, in Ventura City, there's not taxis driving around waiting to pick up fares. To get a taxi, you call the number and then tell them. It's almost like an Uber in a way, but it's a taxi. So there's that they didn't have to deal with. He makes a good point. The crime does seem like it becomes like shooting fish in a bowl, in a barrel. What's the term? Shooting fish in a barrel. Everybody is packed in there. But one thing I think, relate, or at least try to connect, is the city leaders they're thinking about tourism, I think. This is what I think. That not really thinking about the locals, people who live there, people who live outside of London who come in for the day. Maybe it's more geared for tourists, people who are not driving into the city to begin with. They're already using taxis from the airport, using the train, so on and so forth. So that'll be interesting. And yeah, if it's 1.5 miles long, that's a long street. And therefore, I would think you would need maybe parts of it to where you can cross through. Vehicles can cross through. It would give him a drop-off point, pickup point along Oxford Street as well. Interesting, though. Yeah, thank you for this video suggestion. This is, I love learning about history and seeing all of old, England and Britain and the UK. But it's certainly nice to see something that's somewhat current. This video is several weeks old, so I'm not sure when or what point they are in this decision process, if they're going to close it. But I think you're never going to make everybody happy, right? I think there's going to be some upset people. The restaurants and shops, they're all going to enjoy it. But that could cause issues in traffic, like he says, in other places that will make it harder for them. But on the other hand, some of those shops and restaurants that are not on Oxford Street, that may be a block over or 2 blocks over, get more foot traffic, get more, people milling around. Interesting. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts who have experienced this or is going to experience it. Now, I trust Tom. I mean, yes, he's a taxi driver, so he's going to have skin in the game, but I trust him. He's made some valid points, and I think he's been fair in this video. And also, before we go, who knew that there was a magazine for taxis? That's cool. Go support Tom again. Very important that you do so. Hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.
Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark.